proud to be part of this community working together to make this work. I'm sure that for you, as well as for me, it's kind of the stories of kindness, grace, and generosity that are all around us that can keep us going. I distribute food at our food pantry, the Panther Pantry. We've kept open for 2 days a week during this transition, and I've been distributing food on Friday, and it gives me an opportunity to talk directly to students, which is really valuable for me. And I just wanted to share with you, which I'm sure you know from your dealing with them, how important it is for them to stay connected to you, to our faculty and to our staff, and to the people who believe in them. They tell me over and over, I ask them, how's it going? How your classes are going? And what they tell me is the most important part is, even if by Zoom, seeing the faces of their faculty and the staff and the people, again, that believe in them and support them is so important. I remember one student last Friday who I said, how's it going? He told me about his classes. And then he just looked at me and said, I really miss the college. I really miss being at BMCC. I miss being with my faculty. I miss being with my advisors and my tutors. And I even miss this building. And so please, you know how important BMCC is to our students in terms of coping with this disaster that we're all facing. So I just want to, again, thank you for that. Of course, we know that we're facing many challenges, so we talk about some of those and how we're addressing them. First of all is access to technology, excuse me, reliable computer and internet access. So we've been in the process of distributing literally hundreds of devices. They are Chromebooks and iPads to students over the last several days. CUNY has now changed the distribution method for that, and we'll be doing it, I can't remember, through FedEx or UPS, and so we're sending directly to them a list of students for delivery of additional devices. So that's still going on. The next wave of that distribution will be for faculty and staff, and so we've been collecting the names of faculty and staff who, again, do not have reliable computer or internet access at home and need that in order to do your jobs remotely. So if that is you, and please make sure that your chair or your supervisor knows that, and we're in the process of figuring out that next wave of distribution, which again will be to faculty and staff. Another challenge we're seeing, and I saw that somebody already wrote this in the chat box, is Zoom safety. So just when we think we have a good solution that's going to work for us, we have all this Zoom bombing and concerns about Zoom safety. So I want to make sure that you access our very good academic continuity website, which has been created through e-learning and Director Christopher Medellin and others. And if you go to our website and you have that those 5 buttons, coronavirus buttons, there's one about academic continuity, and there's a really good list of Zoom safety strategies that I encourage you to read over and use. And so unlike K through 12, CUNY is not making the recommendation to eliminate use of Zoom. It's making the recommendation to make sure you use those security measures. So again, take a look at that. Another problem has been students who disappear. So I'm sure that if you're an advisor or a tutor or others working with students, you may have experienced the disappearing student issue. And so one of the things that we've done through Dean Janice Zuma, her office, and others is using Connect to Success, a flag for students who have just disappeared. So what's really important is that you let us know who those students are and that we reach out and connect them. And I'm sure that advisors have been doing that as well. But what we're trying to figure out even at our last cabinet meeting is how can we make sure that we are connected to every single student. And so if we take ASAP and they're contacting their people, advisors are contacting, we're contacting through this early alert system. We want to make sure that we have a connection with every single student. So we're working on that. Meeting students' basic needs is obviously a challenge in a remote environment. As I said, we're keeping the pantry open 2 days a week to distribute food. We have created a COVID-19 student emergency fund. And so again, if you look on our website and in those top buttons around coronavirus, there's one that's about our emergency fund. So we're looking for donations. We're doing some fundraising around that. And so that the idea there is that we know that students are going to have a huge economic burdens. And we'll talk about this in a second in relation to New York City, but 80% of our students came before this crisis were from families that were making under $30,000 a year, and now many of them have lost their jobs. And we know that the economic impact for our students is going to be dramatic. And so building this emergency fund is really important. And then I also just want to thank the counselors, the advisors, the tutors. All of that is just critical that we're able to wrap our services around our students to keep them here and keep them in classes. And then finally, I know that it's been really just a huge challenge for faculty and staff to make this transition. Suddenly, we're doing completely new ways of working, learning new tools while creating new contexts. I'm sure many of you are probably homeschooling, never having thought you would be homeschooling before. Now you're doing that in addition to your work, caring for families, being anxious for families. Our hearts go out to those in our community who have fallen ill or who have family members who have fallen ill. So all of this is just an enormous psychic phenomenon, if you will. So I just want to thank you again for your contributions and for sticking with it and trying to keep up with this. Things are changing every single day. I have an emergency conference call with the chancellor about every other day. We had another one last night. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But thanks for trying to keep up with the changes and this keeping your energy and your positivity. It's really important. So recognizing all the challenges and changes in upheaval, CUNY and BMCC have made several significant changes to policy and practice. Many of these I'm sure you've heard, but just want to go quickly over them. One is that students will have the opportunity to change any or all of their grades once they've seen them to credit or non-credit up to 20 days after the grade submission deadline. This is obviously a huge change for students and something that they'll need help in terms of navigating and figuring out whether they want to do it or not. And I know that our registrar Lam was at yesterday had a Zoom meeting or training about this. So he's a great contact for this in terms of strategies, but we're really going to be depending on advisors to help us through this as well. Students can also take a later W withdrawal without penalty on their GPA. There's a longer period for making up incompletes. If students don't meet the requirements for going off probation, they will not be dismissed. They will be on continued probation. There'd be no student evaluations of faculty in spring 2020. Commencement has been postponed. That's CUNY-wide. Commencement has been postponed, trying to figure out how we might be able to do some sort of celebration and what that will mean for the class of 2020. Summer, we will continue to deliver all instruction and support services from a distance. And fall 2020 guidance, official guidance from CUNY is still forthcoming. We're having conversations about that. What all CUNY colleges are recommending at this point is that we plan for at least 50% of our courses to be delivered from a distance. But again, our goal is to try to get back to the campus when we can, but only when it's safe. And so what happens in the fall will be directly dependent on guidance from the state and the city. We want to be as responsive and supportive as we can to your needs. So we continue to assess the student experience, the faculty experience, the staff experience. That's part of what these town halls are about, to get feedback from you. What are we doing well? What do we need to do better? We sent out a survey a couple of days ago with 2 simple questions. We hope you'll take a few minutes to complete that, which is, what have been the greatest challenges in this transition, and what can we at BMCC do better to better support you? So please, we want to hear about that. And now that we are moving from this kind of reactive spring 2020 semester to a more planful summer and perhaps fall semester, it will really help us to hear from you in terms of what we can do better. So as we know, while we're confronting an unprecedented and unimaginable healthcare crisis, we're only beginning to feel the results of an economic crisis unlike anything we've seen in a very long time. As I said earlier, we know that many of our students are facing some sudden unemployment in addition to concerns about their families' health and trying to stay in their classes. We also know that revenues in New York City are plummeting. The city recently informed CUNY, last week this was, that they will be taking back $20 million from the community colleges in this fiscal year, which is unprecedented and a very huge burden. So this fiscal year ends June 30th. So they're taking back $20 million from the community colleges. CUNY thinks they can backfill 10 million of that, which means the community colleges will have to share the burden of the other 10 million. So we're working with the central office to figure out how we're going to do that. We will manage that. That is a huge burden, but please know that we are in for some lean times ahead. With so much anxiety and uncertainty about, I really hope you're taking the time to share joy and beauty and compassion that is all around you, and taking the time to engage in self-care and care for your family. Spring is here sort of incongruously with magnolias and cherry blossoms and hyacinths and tulips. And I know I look forward every night. I don't know if this happens in your neighborhood, but at 7 p.m. in my neighborhood, there's the very raucous cheering and whistling and pots and pans banging in celebration and recognition and thanks for healthcare workers. And I recently got an email and a picture from a recent BMCC nursing graduate who was all decked out in PPE and very proudly working on the front lines and making us proud in the same way that all of you make us proud in terms of what we're doing. So I just want to, again, tell you how inspired I am by the compassion and dedication of our faculty, staff, and students. So thanks for all that. It's important to pause and remember that before all this started, we had accomplished a great deal, and work continues in important areas. We are nearing the draft of our 2020-2025 strategic plan, Designing for Success, based on the work of literally hundreds of faculty, staff, and students. And I want to thank those 6 working groups that are still working, and the co-chairs of those working groups still working to develop strategies to dramatically improve graduation rates, successful transfer, baccalaureate attainment, to improve student learning through culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy, to expand career development leading to meaningful work and family sustaining wages, and to achieve equity in these outcomes. So we have extended our timeline a bit, but we are still on track to publish our strategic plan in September. Remember too all of the accomplishments of BMCC and how proud we can be of these. Last year, BMCC was again ranked number three in the nation among two-year public institutions with the highest economic mobility rates, moving students from the lowest economic quintile solidly into the middle class. Reversing a multi-year trend, our one-year retention rate increased to 59.7% this year. And for 6 years in a row, our three-year graduation rate has increased now at 24.5%, which is nearly 50% higher than it was 5 years ago. And this year, for the first time, BMCC was deemed eligible for the prestigious Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence. So please, let's take time to reflect on all that we've accomplished, all we have to be proud of. I will have more good news to share at our virtual State of the College, which will be live streamed on May 5th. So there'll be more information about that coming out as well. But again, we have much to be proud of. We have much to look forward to. We will get through this. We'll get through this together. We'll get through this because of the hard work of all of you, the dedication, the compassion, and the kindness. And we will be stronger on the other side of this. So now I'd be glad to take any questions or suggestions. Again, we really welcome and value your feedback as we're trying to figure out how to create the best experience possible in these very difficult times. So Manny, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. So the first question that came up was, is it known how many confirmed COVID cases we have at BMCC?
So that reporting is backed off. The last I knew, we had about 20 plus confirmed cases, but we've stopped that reporting. The reason we've stopped the reporting is that the guidance now is that everyone stays inside, everyone stays in isolation, and only then goes to seek medical care if you have extreme symptoms. So that reporting has died down. People have stopped telling us.
Okay. There also have been a few questions with regard to access to laptops and Chromebooks. In some cases, some staff might have purchased laptops, and there were questions of whether they would be receiving any type of reimbursement. So maybe you could share in terms of the process for accessing those devices?
So, right, so we have not made a process for reimbursements. Any purchases should have been approved by supervisors prior to being made. So what we're doing is we have laptops. CUNY has acquired 50,000 devices across the university. And so those will be distributed to faculty and staff who inform their supervisor that they need one.
Okay. There was one question from Brian Dowling. Is there an estimate for how long we'll be working from home? And do you have any idea in terms of when we might possibly be coming back to campus?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and who knows? I mean, that's going to take, we have to know what's happening with this virus, and we have to know when our guidance around social distancing, when that is lifted, then we can consider coming back to campus. We will not come back to campus, obviously, if there's still any kind of social distancing guidance in the city or in the state. So we are waiting for guidance from the city and the state on that, but certainly it's not going to happen this semester. And as I said, the summer we're already planning for working entirely remotely.
Okay. Another question, technically, it's with regard to access to files, accessibility to files from their computer so that they can work effectively.
So there is, now I'm not the greatest wizard on this, but I don't know if there's somebody on the call who's, there is a way to access your files remotely. So you go into the BSC portal. Is there anybody on here who can explain this better than I? You go on the BMCC portal and then there are tiles and it says My Files. And that's where, yeah, portal My Files, right. So that's where you can get access to the documents that you have on your desktop.
Okay, and see more class. One question, how will BMCC manage the financial burden, hiring freezes or other measures?
Right, and so right now, the only expenses we can be making from this day forward are for payroll and for COVID-related expenses. So that's one thing. So immediately, which we already stopped this, but there's no more OTPS spending, for example. There's no more purchasing going on, again, other than for COVID-related expenses. So that's the first thing that's happening. We also are doing suspending all searches at this moment. So that's faculty and staff searches. So those are the two first things that we're doing.
Okay. There's a question also, when will a decision regarding fall course offerings be made, considering that registration is open for students for summer and fall of 2020?
Right. So this puts us in a bit of a bind. Yesterday, we had a meeting with the chairs about this. And again, Alon, the registrar, was on that. And so right now, what we're trying to do is plan for about 50% of courses from a distance, and also trying to think about, and this is a department by department sort of planning process, which is how can we create a schedule such that we can pivot from if we were able to come back to more face-to-face classes. And so the question was about when is it going to be made, and that I don't know. And again, it's going to be a CUNY-wide decision, and so we're waiting from guidance again from the city and the state about that.
Okay. Let me see if there are any more. Oh, some more questions are coming in with regard to access to the H drive through the BMCC portal. And I think more specifically, I think they're talking about VPN access to their desktop. And I don't know if Joe Spadaro is...
Joe could not be on the call this morning.
Okay.
I know he's going to be on the one this afternoon, but is there anybody from IT? Manny, you could unmute somebody if they could answer that question.
Yep.
Who's that?
Don't see.
And we can get back to you again as well. And so one of the purposes, as I said earlier, but for these virtual town halls is to collect questions, to collect suggestions, and then we're going to be working across the 4 different town halls that we're having, maybe create some more information on the website, the academic continuity website, answering your questions.
That's correct. And we will also be providing additional information at BMCC and in any other upcoming messages that would be sent out through email. There is one other question that just came up. Let me see. This is in regards to pay stubs. Given how long we will not be returning to campus, is there a plan in place for us to receive our pay stubs at home?
That I don't know. So let's put on the that on the list.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anybody from HR. I'm actually meeting with the HR group. I can bring that question to them and we can get back to you.
Okay.
But it's really important to ask these kinds of questions because then we can try to figure out a solution.
And another HR related question, are college assistants going to remain on payroll?
So the agreement that CUNY made was that they'd agree, stay on payroll through whatever contract period they're in. And so that's where we are at this moment.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Yeah, I think we're done with questions, President Wilkes.
I actually have a question. Hello, good morning.
Oh.
This is Justina.
Okay, where are you? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, hi. So if there is a plan for staff to return to BMCC for the summer, I understand that for the spring, that's not going to happen. How is the staffing going to work? Is there a plan in place for that? Thank you.
There is not a plan in place for staff to return in the summer unless it was suddenly deemed safe. So that, as I said, all of summer delivering instruction and support services will be from a distance. That's the plan right now.
Okay, I'm looking to see if there are any other questions. Oh, a question from Derek Pace. Is it possible to get the registrars to do an info session on Zoom on the credit, no credit, so that advisors fully understand the ins and outs of how it works?
So I thought that he did that yesterday. Was anybody on the, or maybe it's today. It was either yesterday or today. But I know that he's already planned one, and so that we'll do another one. It was yesterday, and we'll do another one. There it is.
Okay. And let's see, they're still coming in. One question, how is annual leave being handled in terms of those individuals who have an excess of 45 days for the fiscal year, given there's a stay at home order?
Right, and so we talked about that at Cabinet at our last meeting, and it's likely that we'll have an extension of that because no one's able to use those now. So more on that soon though, but we're aware of that issue.
Okay. And then someone was asking if there was any word with regard to access to Zoom Pro for everyone.
I thought we had access to that for everyone.
That's my understanding as well. We will make sure to include that information. There is a link on our website. So we'll make sure to include that at BMCC and the other announcements so that you can also get information regarding best practices for Zoom. And let's see. There was one question, and I believe you've answered it, President Wilkes. Someone was asking about obtaining physical documents from their offices, and given the fact that currently, the campus is technically closed, getting access to that would not be possible, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And let's see. A question from Felix. Will HR provide some type of letter as proof to collect unemployment?
If You mean it, yeah, for sure. I mean, whatever
Yeah.
requirement is in place, again, that's an HR question, but
Mhm.
whatever is required, we would certainly provide.
Okay, and then a question from Janelle Salmon. Would Bursar postpone holds for students wanting to apply for the fall semester?
So I don't know if Diane is on here, but we're doing a number of things to try to make it easier for students to come back. So is Diane Walliser on this call?
Yep, go ahead, Diane.
Okay, I'm working with a group of folks, and tomorrow we're going to finalize holds for summer and fall. Plus, Albina and her team will be working on some emergency funds from the Department of Ed to try and get students in a place where they can reduce their current semester balances. So hopefully the first part of next week, we should have more information to you about who will be eligible for all of those things.
And additionally, we will have, I don't know if this is the Department of Ed money you're talking about, but there's the extra SEOG that you've mentioned
Yes.
before, but there's also the stimulus that we're expected to get about $90 million in New York State, which will be split among colleges. We're going to benefit probably more than other colleges because part of the formula is around weighting very heavily for students who are on Pell, eligible for Pell.
Yes.
So that'll be another pot of money to try to, we're doing everything we can, again, with the COVID emergency funds as well, to try to make it possible for students to stay in their classes and register for the next semester.
Okay, I believe that's all the questions we have.
All right, well, again, thanks so much for taking the time to join me in this virtual town hall Zoom meeting. I'm sure you have many Zoom meetings a day as I do, so we're getting a little better at this. Thank you again so much for your compassion, your dedication, your kindness. It means everything in this very difficult time to try to create a kind of experience that is meaningful for our students, and it makes such a difference to them. So please continue to take good care of yourselves, those you love, and those around you. Thanks so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.